Good afternoon and a warm welcome. This is Labeltv, a Pan-African international channel. In today's episode, we are watching the 7th round, a program that takes a look at issues that makes the news during the week. As usual, we have two issues on the menu. The South Africa that want to become the center, the COVID-19 vaccine center on the continent, and the divorce filed by ex-president Laurent Gbagbo barely 4 days after he returned. Let's take a look at this. With me to discuss this, I have Jean-Michel Bade. Jean-Michel.
Thank you, Mr. Willie, for having me. A great afternoon, a good afternoon to our viewers.
Yeah, and Patrick, thank you for coming.
Yeah, good afternoon, Willie, and thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, the World Health Organization this week said it is in talks to create the first ever technology transfer hub for COVID-19 vaccine in South Africa, a move that will boost supply to the African continent that desperately in need of doses. We come back to discuss it after this report.
Africa will soon be able to take responsibility for the health of its own people. The World Health Organization is in talks to create the first ever technology transfer hub for COVID-19 vaccines in South Africa, a move that will boost supply to the African continent that is desperately in need of doses. The new consortium will include drug makers, BioVac, and AFRIQUE biologists and vaccines, a network of universities and the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They will develop training facilities for other vaccine makers to make sure that use a genetic code of the spike protein, known as mRNA vaccines. In time, AFRIQUE biologists could provide training to other manufacturers in Africa and beyond, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said. Many hope this initiative will help reduce inequalities when it comes to access to vaccines. Out of more than 1 billion anti-COVID doses administered globally, less than 1% have been in poor countries, with dozens of countries desperately waiting for more doses after the COVAX initiative. A UN-backed plan to distribute vaccines to poor countries faltered in recent months, and the WHO has been trying to persuade rich countries to donate vaccines once their most vulnerable populations are immunized. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa congratulated the creation of this technology transfer hub. For him, this is a phenomenal step as they cannot continue to rely on vaccines that are made outside of Africa, but it might take months for any new factories to start producing COVID-19 vaccines.
Yeah, the first technology transfer center, COVID-19 vaccine on the continent. Jean-Michel, has it come at the right time?
Well, I don't know if it's the right or the wrong time. What I know and I'm proud of is that some steps is taken forward for tackling down this pandemic on the continent. Now, is the transfer the best way to tackle the pandemic? I'm not very sure. This is one of the grounds I'll be discussing here with you. Is it the right time? Maybe not, but at least something is being done.
Patrick, the hub said to be the first COVID vaccine production facility on the African continent.
I think that the South African government have seen that they are struggling to get these doses from these international companies in South Africa and in most of African countries. So they are lagging behind the program of vaccination in South Africa. This is why they need to manufacture themselves the much needed vaccine that everyone is waiting for.
Yes, according to the World Health Organization director, he said many hope this initiative will help reduce inequalities when it's come to access to vaccine. In fact, when the coronavirus first broke out, we thought, we never thought it's going to be this at the massive level. And now African country is struggling because of our poor health facilities. Jean-Michel.
Well, COVAX up to now, which is taking care of vaccination mainly for poor countries, has delivered only 88 million of doses up to now. So it's good that we're going to develop those vaccines on the continent. Now the big question, to my opinion, should be if those vaccines are reliable, if those vaccines are sufficient enough, because we've seen Pfizer being highly criticized, removed from the market by the very same WHO a couple of weeks ago, and then reintroduced again. So my concern when it comes to the African continent facing the pandemic COVID-19 is it what we want? Is it those treatments that we want for our population? I'm happy with the fact that we need to go for developing stuff, developing treatment, but what treatments, what vaccination? This is the whole question.
Yes, Patrick, the South African president said that the HOPE initiative will change the narrative of an Africa that is a center of disease and poor development. Long before now, Africa, our leaders, have lacked this political will to develop infrastructure, be it on the health, be it on education, even on the road and all that. Is it a new dawn for Africa because COVID-19 is here with us?
I think this was not planned by the South African government. This is being done now because they've seen that relying on Western countries to produce and manufacture the vaccine they need, there is a big list, waiting list, and the vaccines are going to the richer countries first,
yes,
and the poorest countries have to wait for it to come to them. This is why South Africa has struck a deal with an American company to manufacture the vaccines they need on site in their own land, for them to be able to go on with their program of vaccination and be doing it the way they're supposed to be doing it. And this is why they are willing to have this first manufacturing site of COVID vaccine in South Africa. And this was not planned. This is a necessity today.
Okay. Jean-Michel, long before, we have been having other diseases and epidemic on the continent. It has never occurred to us, or African leaders, to come out with a vaccine to fight maybe Ebola, malaria, river blindness, and all these tropical and epidemic on the continent. And now, this COVID has become a wake-up call. Why now?
I'll add to the disease. You said AIDS, HIV, which has hit South Africa a lot, just like Botswana as well. Well, clearly, like we said before, Mr. Willie, I think there is a whole diplomacy around health here when it comes to that COVID-19. Some politics, some people have found into this pandemic a way of dealing with other governments in whatsoever deals. Remember, the World Health Organization is a big organization. Pharmaceutics are the biggest industries in the world, coming before food and any other companies. So, of course, there are a lot of money here, billions of US dollars to be signed upon, to be dealt with. And yes, this is a way of keeping the poor, or keeping the African continent being a customer to their technology, being a customer to what they want. Because I'm okay with research. We all want our continent to go for research, and we have great researchers. We have South African in the United States, we have Nigerians, we have a lot of people involved into research. But what research do we want? Do we want research from Pfizer, for example, buying the very same things that they've developed already and developing this onto the continent? Of course, if it helps, it may help our sick people. But at the end, we keep being customers to the
Western
I think that the industry of the pharmaceutical industry is a big business, and we have very big companies involved in this business, and governments also, and Western governments are very much involved in this business. And you cannot have not anyone can develop a medicine or a vaccine. Okay. And it is only for this country who are well advanced in science and medicine that can do so. And they have the people, the trained people, their resources they need to do it. They have the raw material and they have the trained people for them to be able to develop their vaccines. But here in Africa, we don't have this level of ability and capacity to do it.
But we might have the human resources that is there. We might also have,
I think we do.
Even the finance, because African Development Bank has been funding
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Even African Bank, they have also been funding. And we also have human resources because the Nigerians are involved in this vaccine. Even if you look at the Biden administration appointment into this vaccine, I think there are about 3 Nigerians there. So it is not a matter of the resources. I think what was lacking there, I think, is the political power.
I think these initiatives...
Or the political will.
Of course, we ruled by politicians, so there's a political need that needs to be involved. But also, the direction to where we're going. Mr. Ramaphosa talked about self-determination for the African continent. It cracked me a lot when I heard that, because if we want to be self-determined, and buying the very same things which have been highly criticized lately, I don't think this is the way to go. If we were going for COVID organics, like in Madagascar, for example, or going with our very own stuff, proper organics things, proper to the African continent, I would have said yes. But Pfizer and BioNTech and etc., AstraZeneca, which has kept some people in bed for a couple of weeks after being vaccinated, I don't think this is the way to go.
Yes, Patrick.
When we talk about self-determination for Africa, I think we are too optimistic. This is not going to be a new vaccine. This is only a transfer of capacity that the Western countries are going to make in Africa. This is not going to be a new vaccine, although we may have scientists to do it, and to be able to develop a vaccine. This is not going to be a new one. And the Western countries are going to give to us the intellectual property we need to be able to make the same vaccine. And for us to be able to determine our own future, we have to be having our own researchers. This is why we have to go in the way forward.
Yes, just yesterday, I think, thousands of South African opposition activists rallied in Pretoria to demand a faster coronavirus vaccination rollout in the continent was hit country. Look, was it proper for them to go out there to rally if the vaccines are not available? What do you do?
Well, they needed to make their voice. They needed to make their voice heard. So it shows how much people are desperate. But people also need to understand. We all need to understand that I think prevention is the best way to go against this COVID-19. Because look, up to here we've been having now, I think we're going for the 3rd, if not the 4th.
Yes, the 4th.
New COVID thing. It keeps changing itself. So if you find one vaccination today, the next day it's something else, it's Delta, it's this, it's that. So we may have vaccines, but at the end, if it keeps changing, if the virus itself keeps mutating, as they say, the best way is prevention.
I think that the people in South Africa are making only their fear known to the outside world. And it doesn't depend on the South African government to have these vaccines available if they cannot get them from the outside world, from the Western countries. And South Africa lacks vaccine, the amount of vaccine they need for their population to be covered. They don't have it. So they're waiting for this vaccine to come in. And this is the problem.
Look, prior to this, there was this earlier call by the Ramaphosa and Paul Kagame for them to put on. Why couldn't Africa Center for Disease Prevention wake up at that time, or the continent, and even at the regional level, to wake up at that time and say, this thing that is coming, we don't know how it's going to be. Let's go for a proactive measures.
I think that the African countries don't even understand the whole thing about COVID-19. And you don't even know how.
Nobody does, actually.
Exactly, nobody does, actually. And we are in really the unknown here. We don't know what is COVID-19. It's a new disease. And we are trying to cope with it. And this is the problem we have. And we don't have the resource that the Western countries have. And we have to make do with what we have. We don't have a choice here. We have to wait for these necessary things, necessary equipment, necessary vaccine we need to have the whole population covered to come in. And if we don't have it from the outside world, we have to start manufacturing these vaccines here in Africa.
Yes, Jean-Michel, it takes months and sometimes years to build new facilities to start producing not only COVID-19 vaccine, but also vaccine. What does that, is it going to be waiting too long, or is it something that we can get it maybe in the next 6 months or thereabout?
Well, specialists say it takes between 8 and 10 years to develop a sufficiently enough vaccine, efficient vaccine. So we've been developing those in what, less than a year each of them. So maybe that's why also it hasn't been that efficient in people that take it.
I think it's going to take some time for the South African government to be able to produce and manufacture these vaccines, because the first thing they're going to have to do is to have the infrastructure built first. And this is going to take maybe 2 years to have it done. And after 2 years, then they can start manufacturing the vaccine. I think it's going to take some time.
Yes, it's going to take some time. And then South Africa is the continent worst hit country with more than 1.8 million cases and over 59,000 dead so far.
Well, like I said earlier on, it's good to know that the government is taking some step forward, because it's been really hit. And,
yes, but it's not the only South Africa, because we also have rising cases in Uganda, which the government has introduced a lockdown. We also have it in Kenya. Even Namibia is running out of oxygen. This, I mean, why couldn't we look at this and start being proactive?
I think like I said, we don't have the necessary resources to face the COVID-19 crisis, especially here in Africa. And we've seen that with the Western countries. They struggled with COVID-19 for almost a year before they were able to keep the cases down, to stabilize the whole thing. And in Africa, we're going to have even much bigger problems facing COVID-19. And we have to, I think we have to start somewhere, and we have to start today to have the necessary capacity built to face COVID-19.
Yes, the COVID vaccine hub, our center in South Africa. Jean-Michel, what is your last word here?
I'm optimistic. I have to be. Something is being done for the continent. I'm optimistic. There you go. It's just that I so wish that we researched more. We did more when it comes to what we are, because we have the resources, natural resources, to develop what we need to face that pandemic, instead of just transferring what we have. But for the time being, transferring is a solution. Maybe not the best, but it is one.
Yes, Patrick.
And I think we have to, for us African, to face COVID-19, we have to think the whole our idea we have about the economy. We have to start think about a new way of doing business and start manufacturing a lot of things we need here in Africa. We have to start building the hospitals as well, because you cannot face COVID-19 properly if you don't have the proper hospital.
Proper hospital,
exactly.
Yes. Because most of the hospitals now in Africa are saturated.
They are all saturated, and there are not many of them. And most of the time they are in the capital city of every country. So this is a huge problem we are facing in Africa. It is not the same thing like in the USA, where every country and every state and every region has its own policy in terms of health. This is a huge problem we have in Africa. And the other problem is that we don't manufacture anything at all. We are importing all the equipment we need in Africa. The ventilators are built in the Western countries. We don't build any ventilator here in Africa. I don't know any manufacturing site in Africa where there are ventilators built. And the other thing is that we don't manufacture the vaccines. We don't manufacture the medicine we use for the treatment that are involved in COVID-19. This is the huge problem. Africa is being assisted facing this COVID-19 crisis, and we have to start thinking. We need a revolution in the way we think economics here in Africa, and start manufacturing stuff here in Africa instead of sending all the raw materials in the Western countries. This is a new way for Africa.
Yes, it is a new way for Africa to wake up. It's a wake-up call for us to think proactively and to see how we can put our health, education, or other infrastructure so that we can cope with any outbreak of whether pandemic or whatever. That brings us to the end of this segment. And when we come back, we are going to discuss Laurent Gbagbo again on the news. When he came back, he seek a divorce. He want to separate with the more than 30-year-old marriage that he had with his wife, Simone. After this report, we take it more.
Côte d'Ivoire's former President Laurent Gbagbo filed for divorce Monday from his wife of 3 decades, his lawyer said, days after his highly anticipated return to the country. Gbagbo's lawyer, Claude Maintenant, said in a statement that after years of repeated rejected requests for Simone Eivet to consent to an amicable separation, the ex-president had asked an Abidjan court for a divorce. The announcement comes 4 days after Gbagbo returned to Côte d'Ivoire following a decade's absence, during which he was tried for crimes against humanity during the post-election conflict of 2010-2011. Simone Gbagbo wielded significant political influence as First Lady and was arrested alongside her husband in April 2011 after he refused to concede defeat, sparking a conflict that has left some 3,000 people dead. Gbagbo was sent to the International Criminal Court in The Hague, where he was definitively acquitted in March after a lengthy trial. Simone Gbagbo was sentenced to 20 years prison in Côte d'Ivoire for violating state security, but was released in 2018 after 7 years of detention as part of an amnesty. Laurent and Simone Gbagbo, who have 2 daughters, married in 1989 and campaigned alongside each other for the introduction of multi-party elections in the 90s. The 76-year-old ex-president has been in relationships for several years with 47-year-old former journalist Nadi Bamba.
Yes, Jean-Michel, let me begin with you.
Yeah.
Is it the right time for this divorce? I think a lot of people say they have seen it coming.
Well, it's not even right for us to discuss it, but because he's a politician, we have to discuss what is supposed to be a family's third. Well, clearly he has made his decision since when he was in Europe, and now he's just materializing it. It's a bit sad. Anybody going through a divorce has to be sad. I mean, I'm sad for him, I'm sad for the couple, but I will be discussing what it implies as his politics.
Yes, Patrick, why divorce a woman that you married for the past 30 years? I think at this time people should be making testimony for their marriage, exactly, celebrating 30 years of marriage, and here we are at this high-profile divorce.
I think this comes out of embarrassment. Mr. Gbagbo is embarrassed by the relationship his wife had with that journalist, I think. And he's really embarrassed by that. And I was really surprised to hear that he wants to divorce her. This came out a huge surprise to me and a huge shock. And I think the Ivorian people and the Ivorian opposition doesn't need this now. And this is going to be it's going to cause huge problems for Laurent Gbagbo from now on to be taking part in AFRIQUE's politics from now.
Yeah.
Yes, this is not the first time someone has come out from this situation and divorce. We also saw Nelson Mandela, who came out and said, Winnie, it is over. Exactly. A lot of people were saying, why this woman stand by you and all this time, exactly, like what we have here. I mean, why now?
Well, he's married, tradition-wise, he's married to Nadi Bamba. We heard into the report in the Malinke, right? They're married. Yeah. And I think now he wants to move on. There are other reasons, which Mr. Ngoyo mentioned. She was probably not that faithful. There's Hani Cheli and the Precrasso, 2 sisters, lambasting this lady, saying that Bamba is a witch. Because remember, we in Africa, we believe in such stuff. They say she's a witch, and she's exposing the president, giving footages of him going to a doctor, etc., to tell the world that she's the one taking care of him. Maybe old Laurent Gbagbo, 76-year-old Laurent Gbagbo, fell in love with her attention, because remember, Simone Eivet didn't really have time to go to The Hague. She was always
also in prison,
fighting, also in prison, lambasting the United Nations for him to be set free, released, demanding a passport to Ouattara. She did so much for this man. helping him to come up with the FPI, FPAPE.
Yes, the political party.
Yes, in the 80s. That I don't think, I mean, it's just sad. It's just sad. Two great minds thinking alike for the country, thinking for the best of the countries, separating at this age, it's just nasty, man. It's just nasty, unfortunately.
Is it difficult for all these celebrities, if I may say, to really manage their marriage? Because oftentimes, you find even those in the entertainment, in the sport, top politicians, always having a problem with their marital life. Why is it sometimes difficult?
I think that, to begin with, I think these people didn't come together for the right reasons. They didn't marry for the right reasons. And they married only to get the prestige they wanted to get. And now, today, I think this is a sign that the two want to go their separate way. Because they founded in 1982 the FPI, the party that they are leading together. And this divorce that Mr. Gbagbo has been filing on Monday, I think the problem started a long time ago.
Yes, it started a long time ago.
This is only the boiling point. Coming to the boiling point now where the two cannot stand each other anymore. And I think they're going to go their separate way. Mr. Gbagbo may have a political life after this, like Mr. Mandela did. And this is not the end of his political life, I think.
But Simone is also a very popular woman in Côte d'Ivoire.
Yes, of course. And to me, I think it may not be the end of his political life, but it's going to cost him a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Because this is a great ally he's about to separate, a great stalwart he's about to separate from. She did so much for the party, she did so much for him, and of course, he did a lot for her also. So people will not just see it
Gbagbo is a Christian, because when he came back, his first visit was the church.
Yes.
Isn't it? And Simone, yes, there's another point. And if we look at it from the legal point of view,
they're not even supposed to get divorced.
Yes, because the Bible says at the right time you can divorce your wife is when she commit adultery. I think I get that. Yes, but here it's not accusing the woman of. We have not heard of that.
I think this is implied. This is implied because the guy found her wife with another man. That means she committed adultery a long time ago, and she started doing it a long time ago. And now Mr. Gbagbo cannot stand his wife, the most intimate person he has in the world, with somebody else. I think if I was in his place, I would do the same thing. And this is like a betrayal on the part of Mrs. Gbagbo.
Are you saying the woman committed adultery?
I think the video says that the woman was in a relationship with some other man.
Was it not a kind of a betrayal or something to set her up?
No, I don't think
because
so.
in politics, anything can happen.
I don't think so. And the sign that Mrs. Gbagbo was not faithful to Mr. Gbagbo is that she was not in The Hague. Most of the time, she was in the country, and Mr. Gbagbo was facing the whole thing. That Mrs. Gbagbo was triggering in 2003.
But she was also in prison.
Yeah, she was in prison, but not for the same reason.
Yes, we still have another. Yes, Jean-Michel, we are quickly coming to an end. What is the last word?
My last word is it's very sad. I think this is going to be maybe not the end of the FP.
Jean-Michel has been saying it is very sad. Yes, your last word.
At 75, Mr. Gbagbo should not be thinking about divorce. He should stay with that woman
and enjoy the family.
And enjoy the family life with his daughters. Maybe get another wife if he wants to, but divorce is not a matter.
Yes, at the age of 75, we should not be talking about divorce. We should be talking about enjoying the children and our grandchildren. And with that, we have come to the end of today's episode of the 7th round. Do keep a date with us next Sunday. Until I will see you, my name is Joe Willie. Stay safe.